I think we've always had an issue with secrecy in this country. And like a lot of bureaucracies, I don't think the U.S. federal government is unique. And one of the ways it practices self-preservation is to be too secretive. I don't think that's new. But I think one of the things that we're seeing right now is the exploitation of pre-existing loopholes in transparency. I think a good example of that right now, for example, is, the Trump Presidential Library. We've had presidential library and foundations for decades, but one of the things that we're seeing now is the Trump Presidential Foundation has already racked up almost $500 million worth of donations to this library. $400 million of that is from a plane. There are tens of millions of other dollars that came from settlement money from companies like ABC and Paramount settling defamation suits with the president. But we know about these. My point is that we know about these because of public reporting and high-stakes litigation. The rules around contributions to these kinds of private organizations that may or may not build a library are largely secretive. This allows the potential for corruption to flourish, and this is an area where Congress could certainly step in and pass legislation to require more transparency around donations to those. But I think one of the other things that's happening right now is that Congress is also being impacted by excessive secrecy in the executive branch. So, for example, FOIA offices, which I spent some time talking about, are also usually the offices that are responding to members of Congress's requests for information and government accountability office's requests for information. So if you have a GAO request to the CDC, for example, about something, but the CDC doesn't have anyone staffed not only to respond to FOIA requests, but also to GAO requests, that kind of thing also inherently limits Congress's ability to conduct oversight. And so I think when we're looking at ways to improve our democracy, it makes sense to focus on these hubs like FOIA offices that get information not only to the public, but to members of Congress. I think we need to start thinking seriously when we talk about reforms to FOIA to make sure that those reforms include not only funding for FOIA, but more independence and authority.